Randy Gage, I'm super happy to have you on Grind, Sell, and Elevate. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're the president of the Prosperity Factory, which you've been doing for a long time. I've looked into a lot of your work. I really love, but I would love for you to give some context and background about what your life mission has been about and who you are, so the audience can hear it right from you.
I guess if I put an envelope around everything, it would be the principles of prosperity,
Hmm.
which I kind of stumbled across. For people who don't know my story, I was the middle child of a single mom who raised three kids by herself, selling Avon, raised very poor. And I reached some success in marketing, direct selling. And that kind of introduced me to personal development. And so when I started plateauing and hitting ceilings with my success because of the limiting beliefs that I had. And fortunately for me, direct selling is really like the only business model I know where self-development is kind of baked in the cake.
Hmm.
And so you get I didn't know that genre existed, right? I didn't read self-development books. I didn't know they existed. And because of that, so I started studying the principles of prosperity. And then I thought, I'm going to try to sneak these into my direct selling business. And I was starting to become a speaker, and I thought I could and I was doing marketing seminars. And I thought, well, maybe I can sneak in the self-development stuff. And somewhere along the way, I had my first of many midlife crises. And I said, okay, I'm going to retire. I'm just going to race cars and play softball and drink out of a coconut because I'm tired of doing these marketing. If I have to do one more seminar on how you get a prospect's phone number, I'm going to stick a fork in my eye. And so I retired. And then a very dear friend of mine, a guy named Bill Gove, who was the first president of the National Speakers Association, he told me, you have to be on the platform. You were born to do that. And I just thought, well, I miss that. I enjoyed that. But if I do that, I don't want to talk about how to get a prospect's phone number. I want to talk about the mindset. How do you become successful? How do you overcome limiting beliefs? How do you overcome your fears? And so I kind of remade myself all over, and I've been on that path ever since.
Awesome. Who is some of the people that you started listening to or that influenced or motivated you in the personal development space?
Well, the book that influenced me the most was Atlas Shrugged by
Hmm.
Ayn Rand, because that introduced me to the idea of having a personal philosophy to live by. And then the work of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who were co-founders of the Unity Movement, Ernest Holmes, The Science of Mind, their work, Catherine Ponder, a Reverend Catherine Ponder, another one, just kind of looking at these principles of success. So those were really the big influencers for me, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, Atlas Shrug is quite an endeavor to take down, but it's an amazing book. Now, you've written actually 13 of your own books and two New York best time selling books, Mad Genius and Risky is the New Safe. Can you talk on those and how you started writing books or why you thought it was important to kind of put out that literature?
Yeah, I was speaking, doing these seminars, and people always say, do you have a book? Man, you need to write a book. And so my first book was called How to Build a Multi-Level Money Machine.
Mm, I like
And
that.
it's how to build an MLM organization or a direct selling organization. And that book, I've finally replaced it with a new book I wrote last year called Direct Selling Success. So because I wanted to update it with social media and mobile apps and the internet and new regulations and all of that. But that first book sold over 2 million copies all over the world. It was in 20 some
Wow.
different languages. So it did really well. But my books, I took the same pathway as my work where I just said, okay, I think there's a bigger picture that I want to deal with, the bigger window to see the world. And that's this window of the personal growth and the mindset. So like I've actually, the 14th book is now finished. It's coming out in January 12th, 2021.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And that book is called Radical Rebirth. And it's how to kill off the old you. And, you know, if you're just at, you know, I joke that this last book was the result of my 4th midlife crisis, right? And people say, well, after 4 of them, do you think you finally got it right? And my reply is always, no, I hope I have another 3 or 4 more, well, you know, before I leave this planet or go live on another planet, you know, because I feel that's when you're really growing, you're reinventing yourself. And, you know, the first 1 or 2 were because I actually hated myself, right? I was unhappy. I was sick. I was broke. I was miserable. I hated my life. So I reinvented myself out of necessity, right? Running from something. And then as my consciousness grew and I worked more on myself, now I feel like I'm reinventing myself, not because I'm running away from the old me, but because I'm just creating the next version of me, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. And that's kind of what the book is about for people who just kind of woke up and said, I decided to be a dentist because my father was a dentist and my grandfather was a dentist and my great-great-father was, but I don't think, I'd rather be a dancer,
right,
or a sculptor or program code or whatever, So I think a lot of people just sat aside, they went along a path that somebody else created for them and they didn't want to be on that path. And nobody's ever just kind of got up in their grill, like I have a tendency to do, and say, did you even think about this? Did you spend 1 minute in critical thinking on what the future of your life would be, what kind of relationships you want, what kind of core foundational beliefs you have? And that's what I'm doing in the book, is kind of shaking people by the collar a little and say, hey, let's think about it. And if you decide after you think about it that, yeah, I do want to be a dentist, I always did want to be, great, I'm happy with that. It's not my job to beat you up or tell you you're living the wrong life. It's my job to say, hey, was this a mindful choice? Was this something you really thought about? Or did you just, I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. So when you grow up in Madison, Wisconsin, my mom said, go to school, finish high school, and then you can get a job at General Motors on the assembly line, because they had a factory in Janesville. And if you wanted a steady paycheck, that's what you did. You went to work for General Motors. And, and I would have grown up and I would have been a Green Bay Packers fan. And I would go to fish fries every Friday night and drink Pabst Blue Ribbon beer and have 60 below zero wind chill factors in January. Yeah. And I was like, I hate all that. I hate ugly uniforms. I hate fish. I like palm trees, islands, tropical balmy breezes. I need to get out of here. So at 16 years old, I moved away by myself to Miami. I had old beat up Plymouth that everything I could fit in my car, I took down to Miami. I didn't have a job. I didn't have an apartment. I didn't know a single person in Miami, but I had this dream that I wanted to live somewhere warm in the wintertime and, palm trees and tropical stuff. And so that's what I did. And that was one of those seminal moments in my life, right? But it was a conscious choice. And I think a lot of people never do. They don't even have that thought process. They just, wherever they were born is where they're going to die, because it never occurred to them that they could do anything different.
Yeah, I totally agree. I came from a town in Northern California in the middle of the wine country of about 5,500 people. And my graduating class of 97, you'll probably still find 75 of them there. So I can
Mhm.
I can relate to that a lot. Now, I would take it maybe that was your first rebirth then at 16, which by most people's standards would be really young. Was there anything that got you to start thinking different at such a young age that propelled you to say, you know what, I've really got nothing to lose. I'm gonna just 16, 17, I'm gonna go down to Miami and see how it works out for me. What kind of motivated you or inspired you to do that?
Well, at 15, I was in jail for armed robbery. And there were people who believed in me. I got a second chance, right? There was one of my buddies from school had sent the girl he dated, her father was a teacher. He came in to visit me in jail, and he said, "You don't belong here. You're capable of great things." And I was like, who is this guy? Does he have any idea who he's talking to? And I kind of conveyed that to him, and he said, "No, I talked to your teachers. You skip school for 3 weeks straight, and then you come in and you ace a test. They tell me your reading comprehension is above college level, that you read 10 books a week sometimes. But and I was a teenage alcoholic. I was a teenage drug addict. I was a rebel. I was poor. I hated being poor. And I thought, well, I'll be Robin Hood, I'll just rob the 7-Eleven and give it to poor people like me." And so I was really fortunate. I got, a public defender who believed in me, and this teacher who had spoke up for me, and I got probation. And so I had a chance to do my life over. And I was living by myself because my poor mother, I mean, she was like, what could she do with a
Right.
alcoholic, drug addict, armed robber? And I was like, I hate, I'm not following these rules. I can live by myself. And I think she thought, well, just let him go live by himself and he's going to figure out the hard way, But I didn't. I was able to take care of myself. And so I was really, that was a point where I was running away from the old me, right? And then, probably the second rebirth was the same thing, where I kind of was running away. But then I got on this path of personal growth and self-development. And now I feel like I just, every day I want to be a little bit better than I was yesterday. I want to learn something I didn't know yesterday, do something I didn't do yesterday, get just, even if it's one step closer to the highest possible version of myself.
Yeah, I love that. That's my biggest fear in life, is not being able to max out on my God-given potential, whatever that may be. And that's actually, for me, how I try to manage people and work with people, is look at what everybody's capable of and pushing them. Where do you start if you're someone that's listening to this and they're saying, Randy, I hear you. I feel stuck. I'm not happy. I hate my job. I'm not content with my relationship. What would be some places you would tell them to start to look to get unstuck?
Well, if they really feel that way, then that new book of mine, I mean, it's only a few weeks away, really, especially by the time this is out. So
Right.
go to randygage.com/radical rebirth and start with that book, right? And then I think I put out a podcast like you do, a couple of shows a week. I have a blog on my site where I'm just talking about these kind of issues and bringing up questions. And then I think that's where people need to, the best advice I ever give people is, like, first of all, when you go to bed at night, have this phone charging in another room from where you're sleeping. Don't go to bed the last thing with the last Instagram post before you go to sleep. Don't wake up to the CNN breaking news alert first thing in the morning, right? And then have some time during the week where you're unplugged. Like literally, in my Mad Genius book, in that book, I'm kind of looking at, and even the Risky book, I'm looking at people like, Elon Musk and Mark Cuban and Sir Richard Branson and Oprah, people like this, how do they think? How do they think different than the average person thinks? And one of the things I talk about in the Mad Genius book is that I literally schedule thinking time every week, at least 45 minutes. No phone, no laptop, no devices. I have a journal and a pen in case I want to write something down, but I just think. And there's so many people who are afraid to be alone with their thoughts. They have never been, and particularly a lot of your guy, the guys listening to your show, you're skewed male heavy, 25, 30, 35-year-old. Those guys haven't been without their phone for 10 years. Okay.
Right.
There has not been any time in the last 10 years that they have ever spent 15 minutes without their phone. Right. And that makes you sick. That makes you, it stunts your brain. So like when you unplug from that external stimulus all the time and you just get alone with your thoughts, that's when you really think, okay, yeah, maybe, okay, like we all there's stages in our life where we work at McDonald's or Taco Bell or Uber Eats or deliver for Domino's because it's just, we need to make some money, right? And pay the bills. And we all go through that. But then if we're going to be a critical thinker, we could say, okay, what's the next step for me? What's the next level of the journey? And that's where you've got to have that time of personal reflection and critical thinking. Like, okay, what really lights me up? What would be the thing? Like me, I love Monday mornings. I love them. I love to jump into my work, right? Because I'm excited about my work. I throw the sheets off the bed and I'm eager to get there because I usually shut down like Saturday afternoon. I take Saturday night off, Sundays a day for just chilling. I play softball usually Sundays. I don't work. I'm unplugged. I don't have a phone with me on Sundays or anything. I'm just playing ball and relaxing, fresh air, sunshine. And then by Monday morning, I'm eager to get back to work, right? We all want to find that thing that lights us up like that when, I'm happiest, I'm hunched over my laptop in my lonely writer's garret, typing out my next book. I'm happy with that. That lights me up. So that's what I would say to that person is think about, okay, do some personal time, unplug time. Think about what's your natural gifts, what lights you up, what kind of thing would pull you forward. And then, how can you put yourself on a path where you can keep moving toward that highest possible version of yourself?
What were some of the early gifts you recognized within yourself to help you kind of walk into your own assignment? That phrase, once you're in alignment, your assignment will come, right? So what were some of the things that you started to notice early on for yourself that kind of had those aha moments?
Well, I was able to market really well. I studied marketing, right? So I studied copywriting. So that created this belief. And when I was a kid, I always thought, I'm going to write a book someday. It'd be cool to be an author. That was a dream as a kid. So as I got into copywriting, then that kind of led me to writing books, right? So, but I needed to develop that skill of writing. So I made a conscious effort for that. I started doing those seminars. It originally started as I just did something to train my team. And then people were saying, hey, if we paid your expenses and your airfare, could you come here and work with this team? And how much would you charge us? And so the market kind of told me, hey, we want you to be a speaker. So, I just did my first training. I mean, I was standing there in blue jeans and tennis shoes and just talking, whatever. So, people always say to me, well, what do you do with the butterflies in your stomach, the stage fright? I'm like, I didn't know I was supposed to have that. I was just, so I never had that. Even now, you put 10,000 people in front of me, I'm just put a quarter in the jukebox and I'm ready to go. I have no
Incredible.
Yeah, why wouldn't I? I mean, it's just whether it's 10 people or 10,000, I'm just talking. I know how to talk. You move your teeth, you know. It's like, so, but I started to say, okay, there's a craft to speaking. There's a way to craft a keynote to open, take the audience on a journey, teach them a lesson, and then bring them back to where they started, but something has changed, right? There's a craft to storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
There's a craft to platform mechanics. So I studied how to speak, right? So Scott Adams talks about this concept he calls talent stacking, that maybe you're not the best basketball player in the world like LeBron or Steph Curry or whoever it might be, but if you could develop a couple of talents and stack them, like for me it's speaking, writing, and critical thinking. By putting those together, I've been able to make millions of dollars because
Wow.
people say, I like the way he thinks. We should bring him in to work with our company, or we should hire him to speak at our event, or man, I love the way this guy thinks. I'm going to buy his books, right? I'm not the best writer in the world. I'm not the best speaker in the world. I'm not the foremost critical thinker in the world. But I've put those three skills or talents together in a way that is very lucrative for me. And I would say the same thing. There's people watching this and listening to this now, and you're amazing at social media, right? That's a skill. That's a talent. Hey, that's a big thing. But it isn't just, okay, I'm great at social media, so that means I'm an influencer on Instagram and I'm going to make 200,000 a year. No, it doesn't work that way. You got to figure out, okay, how can I add value or solve problems? Because to me, that's how wealth is created. You find ways to add value and solve problems, and then people will lovingly, joyfully, gratefully crawl naked over broken glass and throw money at you.
I love that.
Because you can make their problems go away. They're going to happily pay you to do that.
Right.
If they've got a business and you can show them, okay, so you're great at social media. All right. So now you got restaurants. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Half of them can't open up their dining room. They're trying to set up delivery service maybe, or pick up. Well, maybe they need some help on social media. Well, there is a way you could take your skill or your talent and add value to someone, and they would pay you money for that, right? So if you could learn copywriting, if you can learn, if you help people set up their PowerPoint decks, whatever the gifts you have. Are you a musician? Are you a rapper? Are you a sculptor? Are you a painter? Are you a wordsmith? Are you, it's like, okay, how can I take my talents and gifts and solve problems and or add value? And that's going to create a vocation for you, or there'd be people that will want to hire you for that, or you could choose to become an entrepreneur and lead that yourself.
Do you ever find that people have a hard time identifying their gifts?
Yes, because we're all our own worst critics. We just are. We beat ourselves up all the time. We know because what happens is we see people we admire, whether it's on social media or TV or in the movies or in the magazines, and it just seems like they have such a perfect life. And they just were born that way. They were good looking and talented and popular and rich. But it didn't work it doesn't work that way. They had to work their way up. They had to, like in sales. I know a lot of your people watching and listening are in the sales business, right? When you go to your convention and they have those people walking across the stage who win those awards, it isn't because they live in a big city and you live in a small town, or you live in a small town and they live in a big city. Okay, you're making that up. It isn't because they didn't have challenges. They had more challenges than you did. That's why they're on the stage. They faced those challenges. It isn't because they didn't get rejection, because they didn't have people drop out. they had more rejection and more dropouts than anyone, but they persevered, right?
Mm.
So it's about recognizing that and saying, okay, what are when we want to change our results, the question we should ask is, what am I willing to change about myself to get those better results? What is the skill I need to develop? What is the lesson I need to learn? What is we like to think we create our destiny, but that's not really true. I think we create our daily habits, and then our daily habits create our destiny.
Yep.
So, okay, are you getting up and getting after it? Or are you laying in bed an extra hour? Do you eat clean? Do you drink clean? Are you giving your body the nutrients it needs to give you the energy you need to be healthy, to have high energy, to go after it? Are you exercising? Are you getting fresh air? Are you getting sunshine? Tell me your daily routines. Are you spending time in self-development? Are you listening to the Grind, Sell, Elevate podcast a couple of times a week? Or are you watching Judge Judy and Divorce Court and,
Right.
the housewives of whatever the hell it is this month?
Yeah.
What is the diet, the media diet you're feeding yourself? Are you spending time in self-reflection and thinking and personal growth? So, look at if you want to remake your life, remake your habits, remake the programming that you're allowed yourself to get programmed with.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. There's one of my favorite quotes is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the system of your habits. And right.
Yeah. And I would take that one level further. I'd say, if you create a goal that's compelling enough to pull you toward it, it will force you to recreate your habits, right? Because if you really taste that, if you make 20 cents a day at a sweatshop in China, and you set a goal, okay, I'm going to be a millionaire next month. You're not going to believe that goal, because you say, I don't go from 20 cents a day to a millionaire next month. That goal has no power to pull you forward. If you say, okay, I make 20 cents a day and my goal is next year to make 22 cents a day. Again, that goal is so limp, so weak, it's not good. Even though you can achieve it, it's not going to inspire you or motivate you to go for it. But if you set the goal that's sexy enough that you want it, and still attainable enough that you can believe it, that's a goal that's going to motivate you, right? Motivation has to come from inside. And when we set that goal and then I believe in affirmations and journals and vision boards and all of that stuff, positive reinforcement, program it in your subconscious mind, as many impressions as you can. And then you have that goal that pull you toward it. It's like I want to play softball at a higher level, right? So what does that mean? It means I go to the gym, even when I don't feel like going to the gym. Because I know, hey, if I don't build up my muscle strength, my, bat speed won't be there. If I don't have the energy, if I don't do the cardio, if I don't lose this extra 5 pounds, I'm not going to be able to run the bases, right? I have goals that pull me forward. And because, I want this next book to come out at this time. Well, that means I've got to set aside time to write every day. Because if I don't, then the book isn't going to get done. And I want the book to get done because I'm excited about that book, what I think it can do for people, and I want it to be out. And, the publisher has said it needs to be delivered by this date, and I need to meet that date, right?
All right. So that makes a lot of sense, Randy, when it comes to goal setting and how to kind of prioritize your goals and look at your goals. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was, you talk about your sacred circle, your people to influence you. How much does that play into, how I guess I should ask, how do you surround yourself with people, and how have you seen that affect others when it comes to their psyche?
Yeah, Jim Rohn was kind of famous for saying your income will be the average income of your 5 closest friends. And I take that the next level further, that I think every area of your prosperity kind of is the average of your 5 biggest influences. So if you're married and you hang out with other couples, I would say your marriage is probably going to be the average of the 5 couples you hang with. Right? And if they're bickering and going through divorce, and you're probably not in a strong relationship yourself. And I think it's true for health and all the areas of prosperity, right? If you're hanging around with a bunch of victim friends who are, right, we all know people who are professional victims.
Right.
Their car gets stolen on Monday, the meteorite lands on their house on Tuesday, their dog gets kidnapped on Wednesday, they get a tumor on Thursday. And I don't say all that to demean those people or put them down. I was a professional victim for the first 30 years of my life. Sometimes we don't recognize that we're getting an emotional payoff from the thing we say we don't want. So we stay in a controlling relationship or an abusive relationship or a bad marriage or a horrible job or a bad business partnership because we're getting an emotional payoff of being a victim all the time and commiserating with our other victim friends. And for me, when I left Wisconsin and moved down to Miami, I left all those people I used to hang out with when I drank and drugged. And that was a big thing for me, right? It was a big step. Even my family, who I love dearly, there was nobody who was really an entrepreneur in my family. Nobody who listened to, my kid's sister, she's the first person in my family who ever graduated from college, right? You could trace my whole family back to the Mayflower. You would have never found anybody who ever went to college until my kid's sister, Lisa. So I'm so proud of her for that, right? But for me to move away, that was a big thing because it put me in a bigger circle, people who thought different. I didn't have a passport. Nobody in my family had a passport. We didn't travel to other countries. There were scary people who spoke different languages there. Why would we do that? But now I've spoken in more than 50 different countries around the world, right? I've traveled to 70 countries. And I know how just enriching it is to come in contact with other people and cultures and languages, right? But you got to get out of your little pool. So you just got to look at, okay, I call it the sacred circle because, these are the people that influence you the most. And your sacred circle, and I can show you where you're going to be 5 or 10 years from now, whether you're going to be happy, whether you're going to manifest prosperity, or you're going to be a professional victim.
Yeah. Thank you for touching on that. I wanted to ask you a big question, but what does prosperity mean to you?
To me, it's the holistic version. Money, material things, relationships, health, mental harmony, and your spiritual connection. I think it's all of those things. And I always will argue with people who think that money or material things aren't important. That's a bad belief. I don't think that serves you, right? People say, well, I have great relationships and my health is fine. Great. But if you're really struggling to pay the rent or get groceries, you're not prosperous. And that's a crime. I don't want anyone to live in poverty any longer, right? I did for many years. So I'm not one of these, born on third base and think I hit a triple people. I'm not one of the golden spoon in my mouth, right? I come from a really poor background. But it would be a crime if I remained poor, right? And I believe that's true. That's why I write my books. That's why I do my podcast and my blog. I believe it's a sin to be poor. It's not a sin to be born poor, but it's a sin to stay poor, right? So we should want all of those things. And by the same token, you could have $10 million or $50 million, but if you have miserable relationships and poor health, you're not prosperous either.
Right.
To me, prosperity is that holistic picture.
Approach. Yeah, thank you. I love that. I also want to acknowledge, right, I hear what you're saying with regards to how people, they have that victim mentality. And I want to get your thoughts on people's relationship with money. I read a book by Kyle Cease. I'm not sure if you're familiar with some of his work. He used to be a comedian, actor, but he wrote this book, The Illusion of Money. And it was interesting to start to analyze how many of us have been taught that, you know, money is the root of all evil, those types of savings, and how much that, you know, kind of derails us from attracting money in our life, prosperity in our life. And so when it comes to salespeople, it's interesting. The ones I feel like sometimes they have the better relationship with money, they don't have a cap on how much they can make, which then results in better sales. And so I want to get your kind of take on that type of relationship and the mindset around it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you went here with that. Yes, you will sell more if you have a better relationship with money. Your company will sell more. Your IPO will get a higher valuation. Your marriage will be happier. The better your relationship is with money, the better it's going to manifest in all those areas. Because if you have a negative, like I have a buddy, BFF, right? Forever. We joint ventured, partner deals, all kind of things. But for years, he just had this horrible relationship with money because he was an orphan. He had self-esteem issues. So he had, you know, when you have low self-esteem, you have worthiness issues. You think you don't deserve money. So I just did and I'm not talking out of school. Actually, if you guys look at my podcast, it's the interview I did with him. His name is Ford Sakes. And he's really worked on those issues. But back then, I used to tell him, hey, listen, I can't have you as a partner in this deal because I need to make $2 million on this deal. And if you're a partner, you're going to sabotage it. And then I'm going to lose my $2 million. So I'm going to hire you as a consultant and I'll pay you to do this work because I know you're not going to let yourself earn $2 million until I could get him to get over that worthiness BS and say, yeah, it would be okay if I earned $2 million because I'm really adding value. And this is a great project that I'm working on, right? You have to have them. I have a 5-book series on prosperity. And people always say, which one should I read first? I always say the purple one, which is called Accept Your Abundance. Because you can't be treated for prosperity. You have to be open to receive it. So again, that's worthiness. This new book, Radical Rebirth, you're going to just love that chapter. There is a chapter. What I did is I broke the book down into 6 key areas of your life where you develop beliefs. Money and success is the first one, right? So you were either raised, that chapter is one of the longest chapters because I go into all of the programming against money, television shows, movies, books, operas, plays, every part of pop culture. They're filled with mind viruses, and the prevalent mind viruses are money is bad, rich people are evil, it's spiritual to be poor, to be rich, you got to be a bad parent, to have a successful company, you got to exploit the workers and plunder the environment and rip off the company, whatever. Those are all negative beliefs about money and that I had for years. And so I would work really hard on this conscious level because I said, I will be a millionaire by the time I'm 35 years old. So that was programmed in my mind. I will be a millionaire by the time I'm 35 years old. That's the conscious mind. But on my subconscious mind, I believe Rich people are all bad people. They're nasty, evil people. And I want to be one of the cool guys. I don't want to be one of the nasty guys. And then the rich people are nasty people. So my conscious and my subconscious, they're just keep hitting each other.
Right.
And you know, with all your podcast work, you know, when the subconscious mind and the conscious mind are fighting, the subconscious mind is always going to win.
100%.
So if you don't go back and find those limiting beliefs, and that's what I go back to, it doesn't matter what generation you are. I go back to the shows like the Beverly Hillbillies and Gilligan Island, and then to Dallas and Dynasty, and all the way up to the current ones like Succession and Billions and Sopranos. And I show you the insidious negative programming, how they portray wealthy people and how money is portrayed, and creates these subconscious beliefs. And then I do it with the operas and the plays and the movies and the books. And there's these timeless themes that keep coming back. And money is bad, rich people are evil, spiritual to be poor. They just come over and over and over again. And so when you read that chapter, you're just your head will explode. Most people, because I was, test driving a lot of this material on my blog, and people were like, oh my God, I can't believe it, right? Like the first superhero movie started with the original Spider-Man. That was the first real blockbuster superhero one. And there's a scene in the movie where Peter Parker, who of course is Spider-Man, is talking to his uncle. And his uncle says to him, "We may not be rich, but at least we're honest." Now, so let's translate that to English. What does that really mean?
Yeah, rich people. Yeah.
Oh, rich people are evil. You should be glad that we're poor, because that means we're good people.
Yeah.
Right? So how many of us billions of us have been programmed with that belief?
Yeah.
And again, you're going to see it in books, movie, television shows, everything. And of course, why does he say that? And why is he raising Peter? Well, he's raising Peter because Peter was an orphan. Well, here's the funny thing about mind viruses. The more emotional they are, the faster they spread and the harder they affect you. And what's more emotional than a child without a mommy and a daddy?
Right.
It's an emotional hook. So I just look at this and I say, well, isn't that interesting? Spider-Man was an orphan. Batman was an orphan. Superman was an orphan. Harry Potter was an orphan. Jon Snow was an orphan. And so I have a thing in the book where there's like Snow White and Worf from Star Trek and Michael Burnham from Star Trek Discovery. And there's like 80 names of all these heroes and superheroes and protagonists, Harry Potter. They're all orphans. And people read that, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I never saw this before. Right. But because this is the insidious nature of mind viruses, that they parasitize the host and they cause you to replicate the virus, and you don't even know you did it. When you hear the Baby Shark theme, you got kids, right? They watch it. It's an earworm. Now it's in you're humming it. Now it's in the elevator, you hum
terrible.
It. The guy in the next elevator, now it's in his mind, right? Just do it is a meme. Where's the beef is a meme. Rich people are evil. It's a meme. And so where do you see that chapter on money and success and the programming, the mind viruses that we get? That's what people have to recognize. And okay, I've recognized I have these negative beliefs about money and success. Now I need to eviscerate them, and I need to replace them with empowering beliefs.
Yes.
And that's the process we got to go through.
Man, love it. I can't wait to read that chapter in the book. I've definitely experienced with your experience, and I feel like I've broken through some levels, but I have more to go. So I love it. Randy, this has been a pleasure talking to you. We've been talking for almost an hour, and you've just spilt out a ton of knowledge. I love your mindset. I'm excited to read a lot more of your material. Where can people find you, connect with you, and look for the book?
Yeah, so randygage.com, that's kind of my Starfleet command site. You can get everything from me there. I have the podcast, Power Prosperity Podcast. It's on all the providers, whichever one you like to use. Twitter is probably where I connect with people on a regular basis. If you hit me up there, if you want to chat about something, that's the best place to get me. And then the new book is just randygage.com/radical rebirth. You can pre-order it, and it's scheduled, I believe, January 12th.
Excellent. Well, I will, in the show notes, have a link to all of that. So anybody just want to scroll down, you'll be able to find all of the links to Randy and to his new book. And Randy, I just want to thank you and acknowledge you for all of your good work and for the amount of people that you helped. Serving people has been kind of your life's mission, is what I've picked up on today. So I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for that.
Hey, thanks for the work you're doing. Love the whole concept of the show. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks, Randy.
Peace.
Bye.